All right. So I have gotten a lot of stuff done since the last time we spoke. Let's walk through some of the changes I made. I want to point out that I have been storing everything on GitHub. Here's all of my commits, all of my branches. Everything is organized in here. So if you want, I can add you to this so that you can take a look at the code. And everything's kind of named out to Hugo / whatever I'm working on. So sign up, Redux, redirect, and whatnot. Okay, so since the last time we spoke, I was able to get Redux working, which, if you're not familiar with Redux, Redux is the system that works in the browser so that you can have data pass between your components. So if you click on something in component A, change pages and whatever, and you need that data again, you can fetch it without having to re-render the page and redo everything. So it's like a little store that rests in the browser. So I got that working, and let's take a look at some of the stuff. So the recent thing that I finished was the recent orders. And again, this is all fake data that I just made myself that we would hook up to the API and then swap out these fields for whatever fields come in the JSON. Not right now, buddy. Go to your spot. Sorry, dog's whining. Okay, yeah, so here it's loading in data using Redux, and then Redux is saving that. I can do like a little preview here. So source, recent orders, partials. Where's Redux? There it is, Redux, action types, recent orders. And so here's my fake JSON data that's coming back from the server. And all of these filters and all of these components work the exact same way. So I'll just demo this one, and you'll get an idea of how everything's working behind the hood. Yeah, so here's our actions, here's our fake data, and then here's our action dispatches. This would be the fake GET request to the server, so fetch data. It's returning a promise, but it should be an AJAX request. And then here I have use cases for a failure, an example with no data, and an example with data. And each one calls the correspondent recent order started, which initiates the loading screen, recent order success, which stops loading screen and sets data, recent order error, which sets error, and then wipe recent order error, which removes the error, filter recent order by ID, and then here's all the filters. So user types in some input, and it filters the array of recent orders by the input, filter by ID, filter by date time, filter by fulfillment house, filter by customer details, filter by order, order items, order status, and end date. And then over here, you have the reducer. So here's the recent order reducer. This actually gets loaded in, the initial state gets set, and orders becomes whatever was loaded from the server. Filtered orders, initial to null. Loading is false, error is null, and CSV ready order. So CSV ready orders is custom for this module because you have to click to download a CSV. But yeah, so because the user did a filter, it goes through that last action and then reduces the data down, and it sets filtered orders and the CSV orders. This filter. So each filter has its own little use case, and it returns back to the state. So let's preview that. So filter order by ID. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. So these are all the orders that have that ID. And what it's doing here is it's keeping in the store the orders that we got from the server are set in a separate variable. And if there are filtered orders, it only shows the filtered orders instead of showing all orders. And then here we can check for like FLMX. And here's all the orders for FLMX, FLAU. Here's the orders for FLAU, and so on. And then we can do like 2015 or 2016, 06, 21, 22. There is none, so it doesn't show you any. Customer details, Cody, Matten, 44, Veronica. And so yeah, the filters are all working great. Flesh Jack Tube. And then completed. Oh no, this is looking for the order ID. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the date to and from, right? So like 2000, let me erase this. So 2015 to 2016. Oh, they're all that. So let's do 16. Filter. There we go. Take that date. And do 20. Filter. Why is it not working? 19, filter, got an error. I think I'm typing something wrong. Anyways, it does work. I just have to check out, see what's wrong with it. I'll check that now. And then the last thing is download SCSV. So you click download SCSV, and it takes whatever's present. So if we look at API CSV download, that is the default name. It's opening. Here's our data. And it exports the data that's visible. So if we had a filter for like, let's say FLAU, there's only 2. If we download SCSV, there's only 2 fields. And so that's all working. Next step is homepage. So on the home, I got sign up working, hooked up to Redix, and login working. So once a user signs up, and again, this is fake data, but right now, a user would sign up, they type in their info, we'd send an AJAX request to the server would store that data in the database, create a new user, and then they can log in. And right now, there's I have email constraint, but I disabled it, so for now you can just type in whatever, and this would send an AJAX request, the server would authenticate whether the username and password is correct. Right now it's just a promise that waits a few seconds and then redirects you to the dashboard. And it's a before render. So here is the dashboard. This is the secret area. This is a user-only area. If you try to get to this area, the routing system will just kick you back to the home page if you're not signed in. If you are signed in, you get to see this. And that takes place before the route changes, so that way no data gets loaded and you can't see anything unless you are actually signed in. And then we could do a constraint on the server that makes sure that the user signed in before you send data back. And so here's what we've seen before. Manual order entry is a default under main and dashboard. If we do product selection gallery, I have to change these templates to the image sizes, but I don't have images to work with, so I just use 250 by 250. But yeah, so product selection gallery, search by product name, flesh lube. It filters down to whatever you search for. And then if you hover over it, it gives you description. I had a few questions about this, like what left and right was supposed to mean on the PSD, and some other things which I can add in an email. But yeah, so that's all there. I need to put an overflow scroll here so it just infinite scrolls down. And then consignment parts, what I just finished working on right now. So here's the consignment parts with the filters. One of the questions I had was you can filter by date in the PSD, but the fields that were supposed to be shown has no date. There's parts, US, CA, AU, EU, but there's no date. So I'm assuming that the object will have a date on it, and you can filter by date, and it should filter fine, which I did add a date object to this, but you just can't see it. And so since there's no date field, I don't think it's very intuitive for the user, but we could talk about that. And then toggle over to the consignment parts stock. There was no PSD for this, so I spoke with, I think, Jessica, and she's saying I think it's the same layout. So I went ahead and just made the simple layout, and this has its own components, its own Redux store, its own GET request that's apart from consignment parts. Yeah, I used the same data object, but this has its own thing. So if we need to change anything, I can change it, and it'll be unique to this, and it won't affect the other thing. So that's the last thing I need to check on for things that I've worked on. The last pieces of information that I need are API enabled product codes. There's no PSD for that. And then account info. There's no PSD for that. And then help. There's no PSD for that. And once I get those done, then the site we can finish the front end of the site. We can go over CSS changes and then start hooking it up to the server. In the meantime, I still have unit tests to write. So while we're meeting about that and figuring out what those pages are going to look like, I can finish writing out the unit tests. And that's it. Thank you very much.